Welcome to Taking Care of Lady Business, where we put the business back in lady business. Hosted by Jennifer Justice, founder and CEO of the Justice Department, a management strategy and law firm that works with female and woke male entrepreneurs, executives, talent, brands, and creatives to build and maximize their wealth, focusing in the areas of tech, consumer product, finance, media, entertainment, and fashion. Jennifer interviews entrepreneurial women who have done it all, who will be sharing their secrets on all things business, especially as a woman. These highly successful women will share strategies and insights, including what not to do and what it takes to win. And now, here's your host, Jennifer Justice.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business, where we put the business back into lady business. Today, we have Farissa Knox. She is an author, an entrepreneur, and a producer. She owns and started and founded RLM Media and What Are You Wearing Productions. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad. I fumbled that intro like 4 times before we just did it. So I think I got it right.
Nailed it.
Feeling myself today. Anyway, thank you so much. You're in Chicago, yeah?
Yeah, I'm in Chicago. It's a gloomy, typical Chicago fall day, but I'm working from home, so it's all good.
I know, right? Makes it easier. The commute, much better. So why don't we start first by talking a little bit about these companies that you have and what you do exactly for them and why you started them. You can break those up a little bit, obviously.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I have RLM Media, which is an ad agency, and that's my first company. It's like my mature company, actually making money. So we're a full service integrated communication and ad firm. We'll be 13 years old in a couple weeks. I love to say, because it's true, when I started the company, it was the same day that Barack Obama found out he was going to be the president of the United States. And
wow.
Yeah.
Were you in Chicago at the time?
I was in Chicago at the time.
Amazing.
And my husband and I went to Grant Park that night to watch him give his speech and get the results in. So those couple days for me were very monumental. I mean, for the country, but then for me, I was like, look at us, Black people, we're doing it. I started a company, we got a Black president, look at our first lady. So it was an amazing time. So we're about to come up on that 13th anniversary, and I'm really proud of what I've built. And today, what the company does, we across the spectrum of all those communication pieces, we do research, we have a creative department, we do paid media, digital marketing, and we're in what I used to call before the pandemic, non-sexy categories of business, right? Where most ad agencies want the fashion brands, they want the fast food, they want the liquor, they want all of the things that are typically spending a lot of money because the consumer is spending a lot of money in those spaces because they want to. We have always played in the space that the consumer needs, right? So healthcare, business services, higher ed, political campaigns, all of those kind of things that after living and thriving through COVID, I was like, wow, these are really, truly societal needs, right? That when things are really tough, become even more important for the consumer. So our business saw a really strong growth through 2020 and 21. And I anticipate being able to keep this going into next year and then start planning, how do I keep it going? Because COVID and the aftermath of it isn't always going to be this palatable, in our lives. So that's my ad agency. And my production company is newer, but it's my next journey as an entrepreneur and as a creative, really, because as I've had the luxury of not having to work for other people for 13 years, what that does, when you allow it to anyway, is kind of open up your mind to what else do I want to do? It doesn't have to be this one thing. And I've always been a creator, a writer, a producer, but decided to turn that into a way that I can channel all of that. So I created my first television show a few years ago before COVID, a reality show called PR Girl that streams on Amazon and Tubi and Plex right now. And that was my first entryway into making something that big that actually qualified to be on people's TV screens at home and on their cell phones. So we are now pivoting to the scripted TV space and really want to be able to put authentic, real, beautiful, interesting TV out there from the woman of color perspective, specifically as a Black woman, but wanting everyone to embrace it, right? So our first idea will hopefully be based on my book that I wrote, Love, Sex, and Friendship in no particular order. And then from there, just kind of keep pumping out really fantastic shows. So that's like my retirement plan.
I love it. You
Yeah.
already set up your retirement plan.
Yeah, at
So
40, I'm like ready.
So when you started RLM Media, like the ad agency, were you in advertising before that?
Yeah, from a sales perspective, I was in advertising. So I used to sell ad space for radio stations across the country. Right out of school, I started at a local classic rock radio station in Richmond, Virginia. I'm from New York originally, I'm from the Bronx, but I wound up moving with my parents to Richmond, Virginia, my second day of high school. In ninth grade, we moved. Yeah, that's like a whole, we probably need a whole nother hour to talk about that and that like life shift. But in that, it found me in Virginia for high school and college. And I was working at a classic rock station right out of school, really learning the ins and outs of sales, understanding the role that, radio ads at the time played in the bigger picture of marketing and advertising. But then I remembered I was from New York and was like, what the hell am I doing living in Virginia? And I need to get out of here, and moved back to New York as an adult, took that local aspect and turned it national, working for a rep firm that has since gone out of business, but was working in New York, and then met my now husband, who's from Chicago. And we moved to Chicago together. He was working in finance in New York. So we were that typical advertising finance couple walking around New York, and then moved to Chicago together, and have since, built businesses and a life and 2 kids and all that fun stuff here in Chicago.
What was the impetus for you starting your own?
Yes. So really it was a combination. So I had been in Chicago at that point, probably 2 years or going on 2 years. The company that I was working for in New York transferred me out here. So that was an easy, work transition. But if like the same thing, when Obama was becoming president, also, we were in a state of crisis as a country, right? The economy was crashing. Companies were closing. They were going bankrupt. People were losing their homes. And the company I was with was one of the ones that was going down the bankruptcy path. And one Friday afternoon, the CEO of that company called a national conference call. And we had offices in New York. New York was the headquarters, Chicago and LA, a couple other cities. Everyone was on a conference call, and he was crying.
Oh,
yeah. And I was like, I think I got to get a job, because this doesn't sound or look good.
right.
And so it was me telling my then fiance this story about the CEO is saying this, and we're, in trouble, and he doesn't know how long it's going to last. I need to go figure out what my dream job is so that I'm set up for when this thing crashes. And in that conversation, my husband was like, why don't you just text a couple of your clients and see if they'll use you to do what you do? If you can make $35,000 that, next year, that's a decent starting salary as an entrepreneur. And then you just grow it from there. And I was like, now to 13 years later, I know that is my reaction to that was, that sounds fun, and that's a typical entrepreneur reaction, not a typical sane person's reaction. And it really was an exciting thought, a challenge, and just fun. And so I did, in that moment, texted a couple of clients that I had close enough relationships with, said, hey, if I did what I do for you from my living room, would you hire me? And they were like, yeah. Right. And that was the start of it. And I didn't know what I didn't know. I think I still would make that same decision knowing everything now, but I would have made smarter, lefts, turns, right turns along the 13-year path, right? Because now I'm a smarter businesswoman for it. This was my business school. I didn't go to B school, right? I did it in real life. So that was the start of the company.
And it just grew from there. I mean, that is part of it, right? It's like, because you just said you were 40, so you were in your 20s then, right? And so it's kind of like when ignorance is bliss, is folly to be wise. But you said if you would have known everything, you would have started again. Would you start it again now, not knowing any of it? It's like those kinds of risks, and thinking about how women they are more risk averse than men, and we think more practically, which is fine, right? But still go for it. Like, take that experience that you had, because at this point you would have been super experienced and like, oh, okay, I can actually do this,
Right. Yeah.
Right?
I think at different phases of my life, if I would have started the business at these different phases, the business would be different and we would have done different twists and turns. So in my 20s, I didn't have any idea what an exit plan was, how to read a balance sheet. I mean, there's a million things that I didn't know. Where actually I had a mentor of mine ask me once, when I was like, okay, I want to take my company from this to this, and I want to sell it one day for this. And he's like, well, if you've owned, at that point, I think I owned the company for like 10 years. He was like, if you've had this company for 10 years, why haven't you done all that like already? And why do you think that you can do it now? And I was like, because I didn't know what I didn't know, like back then, right? Like I didn't start a business with how a lot of people with privilege get to start a business, with your parents or your uncle or somebody already being a business owner or a C-suite individual with any money at all. With any knowledge about how the business world actually works, right? As an owner and as a CEO. So I had to gain that knowledge on my own, because no one was like begging to give it to me, money, knowledge, education, any of it. And so then once I learned it, it was like, oh, now I know the game that I'm playing. I know the rules really well. Now I'm going to play the game better. Right. And so he was like, oh, so he didn't, it's hard for people to understand how I've been bought into this world. The cards that I've been dealt don't come with the rules.
Right.
You have to figure them out by yourself.
That's why we started taking care of lady business. And that's why I started the Justice Department, because I sit in rooms, look, I spent 17 years with Jay-Z and, Rock Nation and the music industry. And I would still sit in rooms with all men, and they'd be talking about stuff in finance where I was like, you're not in finance. Like, how do you even know this? Oh, because of what I do, I'm cool with all these billionaires and they tell me all the stuff. And like, I'm like, okay, well, you graduate from college with a college roommate dad network. I want to build a college roommate mom network, and, building our own table, which is really like the topic of this particular episode. It's like building your own table and taking now, because women might be 50% of the population, but we still only get 2% of venture funding. And as women of color, 0.5%, right? So let's share our knowledge, share all this. So like you literally like just said exactly what we're doing here. And it's like, okay, learn from what I learned, I mean, what are the main takeaways from that? Like, having said that, what are the things that you would impart advice like immediately to somebody who's doing it today?
Yeah. The first thing is really, really know why you're starting a business, right? Because if you're just starting a business to have something cute and fun to do and make a little bit of money, that's a lifestyle business, right? Like that's a very different reason for starting a business versus I'm starting a business to grow it to a certain profitability so that I can sell it or that I can pass it on to the next generation or whatever your goals are, right? But you have to, if not at the start, at least once you are set up and you have your clients and you have your, phase one of your processes and procedures in place, figure out what your goal is. Like, what is your end goal? Because if you're just walking, it's like walking. If you're walking around with no end destination in sight, then you're wandering. You're not actually going anywhere.
Yeah.
But if you have like a destination in mind, then you're actually walking towards something. And you have to be okay with and flexible with the idea that the destination might change. And that's okay, because that's real and that's how business works. So that's the big piece of it. And then just get okay with being uncomfortable, because as an employee of a place, you should expect that your paycheck comes every 2 weeks, right? You should expect that that you feel a sense of safety and security around your job, around the skills that you bring and having them be valued and all these things, right? There's a certain comfort level that should come with working for a place as an employee. But as an owner, you don't have those things. Like, you have to create those things for yourself and for the people who work for you. So there is no like, oh, when it all is perfect. Like, there is no such thing as perfect. You have to just constantly be building. And then I guess the money piece, the number one money advice would be, when things are good, that's when you go ask for money. Don't ask for money when you need it, because no one wants to give you money when you look like you need money.
Yeah. Right.
So when you're having a great year, that's when you go to your bank and your bankers and you say, we need a line of credit, we need a loan, whatever it is. And here's the dollar amount I want. And you're much more likely to get that money then. And then you put it aside for when times get bad, because times will get bad. No matter how great you are or what your products are, it doesn't matter. Businesses go like this.
Right.
And when they're here, you need help. And that's what it is. No matter if you're a $12 billion business or a $2 million business, you need help.
Right. No, that's all amazing and great advice. And I would say having started mine too, it's like, don't be afraid of the pivot though, too, during some of it. Like, you might find that what you started to do, maybe the world isn't ready for, it doesn't need, but they're all clamoring for something else. Like, it's okay. Like, you definitely need a destination. You might not know exactly where that destination, or that destination might change on your way there. Another thing, it's like, hire people, right?
Yes.
You need to hire people. I'm a lawyer by trade. I don't practice all different areas of law, obviously, and I don't practice a ton, but it's like, I still get goosebumps of women who are getting big jobs or in C-suite and don't hire somebody to negotiate their employment contracts or executive contracts, or they start a business and, their husband's accountant says, oh, you can do a DBA. It's like, no, you can't. Like, this is a business. So it's not just a little hobby business, right? Where you're like making some caftans on the side, like, for your friends. Like, it's not like this is, if it's a business, like, you need to hire the lawyer, even if you are a lawyer. I remember when Jay-Z hired me in-house, and he was like, oh, who am I going to have for an attorney now to do your deal? And I was like, who am I going to have? And he's like, wait, you're going to hire somebody? I was like, yeah, an attorney that represents themselves as a fool for a client. So you need an attorney to do these deals. You need to make sure that you're protected, and your vendor contracts, and, whatever it is, your distribution deals, your merchandising deals, whatever it is, you need.
That is brilliant advice. And it's like, do it before you think you need it, because it's the professional services behind the business that set the foundation for how solid everything is at the jump, right? Because if you don't have a good accountant, if you don't have a good business lawyer, then, and good as defined by what you can afford, right? Like, don't go bankrupt paying for crazy stuff, but you need professionals who know what they're doing. In terms of the hiring piece though, too, I would add on to that, don't stop at the professional services. Like, you also need to hire employees, right? And I think that women, especially women and people of color, like, I just saw a piece of data that said, like, I don't know if it's right, like, it's like in the 90%, like, let's say 92% of Black-owned businesses only have 1 to 3 employees, and the rest, let's call it the 5%, are more on a traditional path of growth, and number of employees match up to what the gross revenue is. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, first of all, you can't grow your business bigger than what you can hold in your hand if you don't hire other people. So therefore, your business is only going to be this size if you don't figure out how to strategically add to your team so that you're adding services and capabilities and ability to expand and all of that. And people, again, women mostly, and then people of color tend to not, because when you start making money, traditionally for folks like us, it's like this is the first time you've actually made significant money. So then it doesn't make sense that the first thing you want to do is hire someone and pay them, right? It's like, no, I want to pay myself. And if you get stuck in that, your business will never be bigger, larger than you. It'll always be whatever you can hold in your hand. And you might not be able to hold as much as you think in your hand, right? Because that's a whole nother thing. So grow your team, but not from the sense of because you want to be a boss of somebody, but because they are adding value to what you're doing. And then that allows you to add services and capabilities or products or, be smart about it.
And your own mind share, right? Because that's, my mom didn't even graduate high school, but it's like so I came from nothing and no higher education. I was the first to do all that stuff, but it's funny how because of that, I know how to do so much. Yeah. And it's like, women, we don't do our own hair, our own nails, or watch our own, kids, basically, if we're working. But for some reason in business, it's like, I got to do it all because I know how to do it. And it's like, well, but you could hire somebody who actually needs the job too. And you could build the matriarchal system where we're giving each other business and which means giving each other money. And don't ever ask for free advice. Don't ever do favors unless you're doing an actual barter situation, which, we won't get to the IRS about that. But anyway, like pay women, pay what don't ask for a break, give them what they deserve, and probably 20% more, because we always undervalue ourselves anyway. And that's helps build a whole other system outside of, the patriarchal system, which doesn't want us there in the first place, because if they wanted us there, we would be there. They have the power and they just haven't invited us in. And so, yes, it's do that. Let somebody else thrive too. You don't even have to look at it oh, I can do it. Let's clear up your headspace so you can grow the business and give somebody else an opportunity to do something that they really want to do as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. I love it. So, look, it's been 13 years. Things are happening. You've learned a lot. But what do you think are the things that could potentially be holding you back or that are hard for you still? What are those issues?
Yeah. Wow. So right now, I just felt like we took a
if any.
No, I'm like, ooh, this is going to be good. No, I think so. The number one thing that's difficult right now is we're still no one's invested in RLM. We've never gotten outside capital. And not because we haven't tried, because to the statistics that we were talking about earlier, right? And people couldn't see the growth the way that I knew the growth was going to happen. So all this growth has happened organically, which is a tough way to grow. It's a really hard way to grow. So there are times where I feel that organicness still, right? It's hard to navigate in that space when you don't have $1 million sitting on the side in case you need it, right? It's we are really financing the growth of the business from the success of the business, where most people in my position who are entrepreneurs, have a multi-million-dollar business, are growing the business from outside investment. So that's really hard to do. The only outside money we've gotten are in the space of lines of credit and loans, and we got some PPP money during COVID. So all of that has been really instrumental in the growth. Where the next piece that is super tough is people underestimate how hard it is to actually navigate growth in a successful way, especially when it happens so fast. Right. And for us, we went from good every few years, we would be bloop, a growth spurt, right? Another 2, 3, 5 years, bloop, a growth spurt. COVID was 10 years of growth in a year and a half. We doubled in size. So for me, I was like, oh my God, it just shone the light on all the stuff that we were doing wrong. We needed a process for this. We needed a procedure for that. We needed to digitize this. And, it was just like, it felt like a mess. It felt like a house of cards it was falling. It never fell all the way, but it was just like, oh, that one fell. So that's been tough, but that was my spring and summer this year. Really just putting bricks in places that was like, oh, there's a hole that I didn't even know we had, because we never were here before. So like before COVID, I had probably 8 employees. I have 27 employees now.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yes. So the amount of growth that we've experienced has been fantastic, but really hard to navigate on all the different levels, that we have to communicate with folks, whether it be vendors or clients, and just down to how do we get clients to pay us faster and on time, right? So that we can finance all of this stuff. So those are the hurdles that I face now. But honestly, because of I'm grateful that I have been at this for the 13 years, because if I had to do what I'm doing now, like year 5, I wasn't qualified. I was not qualified to do this. I was only qualified to do what I was doing. And now I am actually qualified to do what I'm doing today and a little bit more, because I know I've lived through cycles already, right? And they teach you a lot. So as hard as it is, they feel like good problems and not unsolvable problems.
Right. And that's what it is, experience, right? It's like going through it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. What about with your production company? And where is that going? I mean, I know it's your retirement plan, but like, what do you have coming up with that? And what kind of like challenges do you see there?
Yeah, I think so. Because we're so new in the space, my first challenge is that I am learning the entertainment business, right? I'm learning the entertainment business.
It's dodgy, right?
Yes, first of all, it's crazy. And everyone who says it, and then you get in it and you're like,
oh my God.
So this is the wild, wild west. Like, you guys have no rules.
I know.
It's like, kill or be killed, know who you know, don't act like you know me because you don't know me. And like, it's just a lot, right? So as you know, so that's a lot, but I'm fine. Like I am good to be in that space because I don't take things personally. I know that if you don't get my art, that doesn't mean it's not good, right? It means you don't get it, but I have to help you get it, because if you're the one with the money, I need you to understand this piece of art, right? Or at the very least, understand why it would matter to a different audience than maybe what you fit into. So what I'm happy about, though, as I'm navigating learning the entertainment business, is that I'm a businesswoman and a creative coming into the entertainment business, and not just a creative. Because the folks who are just, I have a great idea, and they don't know how to package that idea from a marketing perspective. They don't know how to protect their idea from a business perspective. And they don't know how to even, like, what is my business goal with What Are You Wearing, beyond creating amazing TV and having people sit at home on their couch and watch it, is to get a deal with a studio, because I want my production company to be a resource to a Universal or a Netflix or something like that, where it's like, we'll pay you What Are You Wearing to come up with 5 shows this year. All right, go ahead, have fun, and come back to us when you have your package together. And then they decide if they want to pay, to make it real. And so that's where I want to be. And right now, I have good relations. Like, I have a couple of good relationships with other production companies that have that sort of deal. So I can go in and maybe be a resource or a partner with them in their deal in my first, scripted TV show concept. And then from there, try to get a deal like that for myself. And that's where I'm going. While at the same time, removing myself a little bit every day from the running of my ad agency, because it's going to require that for me to actually really dig into it on the production side. So yeah, right now we're building our first pitch deck for our first scripted show idea, and enough people have read my book that feel like, hey, this could be a show. And the fun part is like exploring the characters, because my book is a memoir, so it's my real life story. So turning myself, into a television character, and turning people that I have had in my life into a television character is so much fun. And whenever I'm in that headspace, I'm like, I can't believe people get paid so much to do something that is so much fun. Like, it's just crazy to me. But that's because I'm a writer and I love bringing things to life. If I wasn't making something, I would be dead. Like, I have to make things to feel alive.
Is there a mission behind the production company, or is it just like to have fun and like your creative outlet?
Right now, our mission is really, well, first from an aesthetic perspective, we love content that's about real life. Like, I don't think I will ever be in a space where I'm creating like new universes and, alien species and this and that. Like, I love humans. I love our stories. I love getting to know people, why they do what they do and all of that stuff. So we're obsessed with real life. And what we hope to be able to accomplish is express real life stories from the types of people that haven't had the opportunity to put their story out there without the filter of a man or a white person or, insert whatever there. It's like, how about we tell the story of a 20-something-year-old Black woman from her perspective without anyone else saying they have an opinion about it, right? Like other people get to do. So that's our mission, but with it feeling inclusive, because I've never, even with my ad agency, I don't create things. I'm not like, I love FUBU, but I'm not FUBU, right? It doesn't have to be for us, just like by us, just for us. It's by a Black woman, but it's for everyone to enjoy and consume. And if you don't understand bits and pieces of it, I want you to go figure it out, right? Yeah. Like, don't go ask your Black friend, like, just go sit down and figure it out. If we can sprinkle a little bit of common sense in how you can be a better inclusive friend or, society member, based on just seeing other people's journeys for what they are truthfully, then, that'll be great.
Amazing.
And someone personally who does that with their music. I mean, Beyonce honestly is a great example of that from a music perspective, where she is unapologetically a Black woman doing her art without explaining it to the masses who might not understand. But if you want to go understand what it feels like to be a 40-year-old Black woman who's married with children and who is super successful and the whole world knows who she is, then you can listen to the art, right? And pick up bits and pieces of what it feels like to be a Black woman who's grown, because that's real. But everyone can say, I enjoy this artwork, right? Yeah. So that's really what I'm after from a TV show perspective, and just content overall from a content.
Yeah. Amazing. This is awesome. Look, we'd love having you on. This is great. Now we know how to build your own table. Got it. I do have one question I ask everybody at the end, and that is, what is the worst advice you've ever received?
Yes. So this was pretty early on in my career in Chicago, actually. I had a white female colleague tell me that I'll be fine, Farissa will be fine, because I speak white. And I was like, I kind of froze in that moment, because I was offended, but I didn't know how to express my offense and also correct her, or even what to say at that time. I think I was like 26, 27, or somewhere around there. And it kind of still haunts me to this day, because Farissa today knows exactly what to say, how to respond to that. And I wish I could bring her back up in my life just to let her know, no, I don't speak white. What you hear is confidence. What you hear is education. What you hear is experience. That's not a white thing. That is a thing that everybody can do and accomplish, no matter what color your skin is, no matter what your name is, because we're talking about names on resumes and how, why do Black people name their kids this, that, and the third, and if they want them to get jobs. Your name should not be the reason why you do or do not get a job, right? And so she was almost thinking she was doing me a favor by telling me how well I'll probably do in life. In spite of my name being Farissa and not something that most people would know what that, it's not Becky or Karen or whatever. And so I just was like, wow, I wonder where she is today and what she's doing. And how and really I'm giving everyone the opposite advice that, she gave me back in my 20s, and that's not a white thing. And don't tell people that. And I don't want any young Black woman or any woman of color thinking that that's white, that's unattainable, unachievable because
exactly. Right. Exactly. It's endless and limitless. And that's like beyond bad. It's like shitty advice. Yeah. So just a shitty thing to say. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on here. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that? Or hire you, services, give you a big deal, Universal, Netflix, Takin?
Yes, Universal Net. That's why I put it out there in the universe.
Exactly.
They can just go to my website, so FarissaKnox.com. You can learn all things about my agency, my production company, my book, me as a woman, and you can reach out to me through that site, and it comes directly to my inbox.
I love it. And your book is entitled again, in case somebody wants to pick that up?
Yes. Love, Sex, and Friendship in no particular order. And honestly, anywhere online, Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, it's there.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode. If there's any other things that you want to hear about, let us know. And until then, next time, I'm Jennifer Justice.